Hello. A student asked me to put together just a quick little video to kind of get down the essentials of how would I make um, kind of a template for something like this, where we had some buttons on the left-hand side of the screen. We had some sort of play screen. Um, he said maybe a timer in the top corner. So in this video, we're going to go through one approach to kind of get a general framework for maybe a little basic game or applet. This by no means is extensive, or does it go into all the theories, or necessarily use all best practices. It's really a way to get some more interesting programming results, and to also review some of the essential skills we've been learning about classes and objects and so on and so forth. So with that in mind, let's minimize this and let's take a look at what I have here. So kind of the framework I'm going to use is I have two classes. I have my game MC and I have my game MC runner. So in my runner, I'm only going to put this. I'm only going to construct an object and run it. So I'm going to say game MC equal game equals new game MC. So what this is going to do is going to create a game MC object and run it. And of course, right now, it does absolutely nothing because there's nothing in the game MC. It's an object with no fields and no methods. So we're going to use a various number of J components. We're going to think about it as follows. If I pop up this picture again, we're going to actually start by building a Jframe, and what that Jframe is going to do is it's going to act as kind of what houses all of the kind of components that we want that make up our game. So I'm going to make everything as a field. So I'm going to make a field here called, and I'm going to encapsulate it. I'm not actually going to instantiate the object yet. I'm just going to actually create the reference for it. Where I'm actually going to create, I have to import it, where I'm actually going to instantiate that object is I'm going to do that in the constructor. So I'm going to make a constructor. Remember, a constructor has to have the exact same name as the class. We don't write a return type because there's an implied return type of a reference to that object. So then I'm going to come into here, and I'm going to say frame equals new frame, new Jframe, and I'm going to pass it S. So now we save all, and if I look, I'm going to notice an error here, and I hope you can identify the error here. The error is that I haven't passed anything in the parameters, because notice, by writing a single constructor, I have gotten rid of the default constructor. So I can go main game frame. So now if I run this, still nothing happens. Well, the reason why nothing happens is because when I construct a frame, the computer constructs it all right, but it actually doesn't display it. I need to kind of set all the attributes about this frame object. So the first thing I do is going to frame.setLocation. And what setLocation does is it sets its location relative to the actual screen, to the top left-hand corner. So it's going to set the top left-hand corner of my new frame. And again, just a visualization, this eclipse box, this is a frame, right? It has a bar along the top and kind of encompasses everything. We're going to set our size. I'm going to set my size to, I don't know, 600, 600. We'll readjust this afterwards. I'm going to use a command called set default close operation. And there's a constant in here called exit on close. What this line is useful for is this frame is going to represent my main frame of my game, kind of like this frame here represents Eclipse. If I click on the X here, it closes everything. If I don't put this line here, what happens is all that it does is kind of gets rid of the frame, but it still exists. The program's still running. So I'll play around this in a second, but what it means is this basically, by putting this, it kills the whole program. It ends it completely. And finally, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to frame.setVisible, because like I said, when we create this frame, it starts out as invisible, and then I have to actually set visible to true. I actually want to display it to the screen. So now if I run this, there's my frame. Now, my mouse is going off the screen because of my record space. There's my main. So what I'm going to do is I want to adjust it so that when it pops up in the window of my recording window. So let's set the location, I don't know, to 300, 300. And let's set the same size. This is length, this is width. Actually, I believe this is, sorry, this is width. Let's set this to 1,000. I don't know. Oh. So there we go. We have a bit of a wider frame. And there's my main game frame. Okay. Now, I'm going to pause this for a second. I'm going to pop up the Jframe class. So just bear with me. So here's the Jframe class. And again, all these different things that I want to do to my Jframe can be found. Here are all the different, here are the constructors for the Jframe. Here's the methods. We scroll down. These are all the different methods. Now, we have these things at the bottom. Methods inherited from frame, methods inherited from window, methods inherited from container, component, object. If we scroll right to the top, you're going to see the hierarchy of this. Now, we haven't quite yet, well, we haven't formally discussed hierarchies yet. All we've learned so far is that everything object is kind of the root class of Java, so everything is an object. But eventually, we're going to learn how to kind of make a hierarchy. So we can say a Jframe is a frame is a window is a container is a component is an object. So a Jframe has all the attributes and behaviors that a frame has. A frame has all the attributes and behaviors that a window has. So that's what's happening here. That's why it's inheriting all these different behaviors and attributes from these superclasses. Okay. So now a common approach to this is to add a JPanel. And so what we kind of do is imagine it like this. If you think of, pull our picture up again. So a Jframe is kind of all this. We're going to take like into a piece of paper and we're going to fit it perfectly inside the exposed part of the frame. And actually, let me run this again. I have to import JPanel. If I run this again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put everything inside here, but the Jframe, the 0, 0 position is actually up here in the top left-hand corner. Remember, X is positive along this axis this way, Y is positive. I'm going to put a panel in. I'm going to put it in the exposed gray area. That allows me to kind of reset 0, 0 to this top left-hand corner right here, which is a little more useful. So you see, just really quickly, watch what happens. Just to go back to this, if I comment that line out. If I run this, you see how the program's running down here? Watch what happens when I exit out. It doesn't stop. So that's what that close operation does. Now when I run it, see the little red? It's running. Exit out. It kills the program for us. Okay. So there's a couple ways to do this. I'm going to use something called Inset. And what insets allow me to do is it allows me to calculate the insets of the Jframe. So the insets of the Jframe are, oh, pardon me, just comment this out for a second. If I run this again, what I can do is I can calculate the insets. The insets is how thick is this border, how thick is that top border, how thick is that border, and how thick is that border. So when I make the size of the panel that's going to go inside of the frame, I'm going to essentially subtract the insets. So I'm just going to pause this and write some code in. So I've added some code here, but what I'm actually going to do now is pause this video and continue in our next video and talk about these insets and continue to set this up. Hope it helps so far.